Welcome to the second algebra lesson, this video tutorial for it, and that lesson is called Sports League. Or there is another version involving texting that you can do it. You've got cartoons to start with either of the lessons. And it directly follows on from the Roof's lesson, and it just develops the pupil's algebraic understanding. And at the end of this lesson, there is a whole series of activities called algebra stories, where you give them scenarios. There are D ducks on a pond. What can D plus 4 mean? Your aunt gives you, there's 3 children in the family. Your aunt leaves you X pounds. How much does each of you get? They are real life situations where they have to then interpret or give the answer using the unknown value, because you don't know how much it is. So there are P players on a team. What can P minus 2 mean? 2 were sent off. You're actually giving them some context in which to use this generalised number. But for me, the sports league lesson, I really like this because I often start the lesson by telling them, when I was younger, my dad really used to embarrass me. And I'll say to the class, put your hands up if your parents embarrass you. And they all put their hands up. And you say, well, when my children got to school and they all played netball, I didn't want to embarrass them. So I came up with the idea that maybe if the parents played like a PTA netball team, the pupils could watch, and we could involve lots of schools. So just living as I do in South Tyneside, we would say to the pupils, let's imagine we're playing, there's three schools. So we've got East Boldon, we've got West Boldon, and we've got Clevedon. So for each of those schools, and this is where you need to be ambiguous because you want to draw out the discussion and the debate. And this part of the lesson can take up to 20 minutes. So you say to them, if each of these schools plays each other and everyone plays at home, how many games do you think they play all together? And I might emphasise my diary, saying I need to know how many games so I can fit it in my diary. So how many will they play all together, but everyone's got to play at home? You would never say home and away. You would always use the language that the pupils bring to make sense of that slight ambiguity, and you let the pupils work. And so often, after 5 minutes, you'd say, how many games do you think they'll play? Some will say they play 3 because they're doing like a knockout. They play them and the winner plays them, and then the winner plays the other one. Some will say 6, and then some will say all sorts of other variations. And you just accept it, and you let the pupils argue and decide. And at some point during that discussion, you might say to them, oh, what did I say? Everyone has to play at home. And the key point to emphasise at this point is, how have you shown that it's 3 or 6? Some will say East versus West, East versus Clevedon, West versus Clevedon. That's 3, they've all played each other. Some will then start to do other types of diagrams to show that East Boldon can play West Boldon, West Boldon can play Clevedon, West Boldon can play East Boldon, West Boldon can play Clevedon, Clevedon can play West Boldon, Clevedon can play East Boldon. So you want them to focus on how they're sequencing, how they're showing the method, and let the class decide. And usually at this point they realise that actually if everyone's got to play at home, they've played at home twice and they've only played at home once. So actually it's this kind of method, and 3 schools will play 6. So the rest of the lesson unfolds by you giving them more and more schools. And so usually what I might say is, let's think about 4 or 5 schools. We're going to show you some real flip charts from the pupils in a moment. I've put some examples up here, but we will insert in a moment the the ones from the real pupils have used when we give them the flip chart paper. Acetates used to be perfect for this lesson. But what you want the pupils to focus on is how they're showing you their method. And so what I would then say is, okay, let's have 4 or 5. You and your partner work on 4 or 5 and pick a really good method that you've seen or you've heard. Because it's really good to invite pupils to the board to share their method and to say, often to think that they're right, and the class argue with them and they realise that actually it is 6 because we are talking about a league. So you let them work on 4 or 5 for a few minutes and let them share again. And some will say, well, 4 play 8 because 6 times 2 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, home and away. So that you'll write things down like home and away. Others will say, well, no, it's 12. It's got to be 12 because What they start spotting is you always take away one. There's always one less because you can't play yourself. But that's important that the pupils will say that. So you end up with scenarios where the pupils will have different methods of showing the answer. Now, some will do this kind of method, where you've got 5 schools, 1 play 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got this method. This method. Can we cut it there? Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry about that, the doorbell. The doorbell went. What you want to celebrate is their variety of different ways of sequencing the information. Because that is quite powerful, where they can see in each of these methods, you've got the 4 lots of 3. How you manage this bit has to be careful, because you don't want to go with the fastest. You want them just to share their ideas and notice things themselves. So a lot of the leaps in the lesson come from the pupils rather than you. You just have to allow the pupils, you have to listen to what they're doing and who's got it, hold some back, allow some to speak, scaffold it so that the more sophisticated comes later when they've heard the other ideas. So the idea is that here you've actually got 5 lots of 4 because they don't play themselves. And it's seeing this in the numbers. This is the most sophisticated, some will give you this, where you've actually got the 5 lots of 4 here because these are the ones where they don't play themselves. Some will do this, 1, 2, 3, 5 lots of 4. Some will do symbols. And at some point, you say to them, well, hang on, what's going on? And they say things like, well, they don't play themselves, there's always one left. So, yeah, look, it's 5 lots of 4. A plays B, C, D, E, that's 4. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. 5 lots of 4. Oh, sir, 5 times 4 is 20. And so you can then focus on saying, well, hang on, 3 played 6. Oh, that's 3 times 2. Why is it times 2? Because you take away 1. 4 played 3. Oh, that's 12. And it's lovely if the pupils can do this themselves. These are the steps you take the pupils through. The maths has emerged from a context of playing netball or sending texts. It's exactly the same, or sending cards. Doesn't really matter. But the idea is you're taking through the steps of there's a context, the maths emerges from it, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Just like in the first lesson, roofs. 6 times 5, 7 times 6, 8 times 7, 9 times 8, 10 times 9, and we'll say things like, well, if there was 100 schools, it would be 100 times 99. And they said, well, where does the 99 come from? It's 100 take away 1. Because I think it's important to make the point that these numbers mean something. They're not numbers, they're not calculations. That means 100 schools. That means 100 schools play 99 other schools. These are not numbers, these mean something. These are numbers of schools, it's an actual scenario. And I said, well, hang on, couldn't we keep on going like before? And say, okay, what if it was lots of schools? What would it be? And leave them to struggle with that. Some say, well, you've got to know the number. You don't know the number. No, it's lots. Some will be logical and say, well, you just take away 1 from lots. And that's the answer. You can focus on the brackets if you want, if it's appropriate for the class. Then you say, let's just use the first letter of the alphabet. A times A minus 1 equals games. And what's interesting is I've got a piece of work from the pupils here who did it on acetate, water damage, but that's what they came up with. Y minus 1 times Y equals X. And what we did as a class was we unpicked it and said, oh, it's those number variables again. It's that algebra. So it's a second lesson. It's lovely. One of the best examples of that lesson I've ever done was with a mixed year 8 group in the middle of Weardale somewhere, because the children just were arguing about their methods and seeing things in each other's method. It's them seeing the patterns and articulating the patterns and going from this here, all the different methods they share, to this, to seeing the 5 lots of 4 because you can't play yourself, to building it up and building it up till eventually you end up symbolising it again. And as I said, you can finish with the algebra stories. But I think it's a very, very powerful experience for the pupils to go through all of those stages. So that's Sports League. As I said, you could do it as texting as well, but there's something nice about the narrative. So if you can come up with a similar narrative, then that's fantastic. And you might have examples of where you could go at the end with it, and that's the whole aim of it. It's to help you support your pupils' thinking.